Good morning and welcome to this meeting of the Community Governance Review Steering Group. My name is Councillor Christine Bayliss, Chairman of this group. This meeting is being held remotely and is being live streamed via YouTube, and the recording of it will be made available on our website. Councillors are reminded to put their mobile phones on silent if they have one near them, and mute their microphones when not speaking, as this will reduce feedback and background noise. Members of the steering group should leave their cameras on at all times so that all participants and observers can see you. Other members present will be invited to turn their cameras on when they are invited to speak. Officers are requested to mute their microphones and turn off cameras when not speaking. I will first do a roll call to check all members who are expected to attend are present. As I say your name, please turn on your microphone and confirm you are connected. Councillor Terry Byrne.
Present.
Councillor Jimmy Carroll. Councillor Carroll. Councillor Polly Gray.
Present.
Councillor Lynn Langlands.
Present.
Councillor Paul Osborne.
Present.
Councillor Richard Thomas.
Present.
Lisa, I wondered if you could confirm if there are any other members in the meeting room.
Christine.
Yes. I apologise, Councillor Timpey. Councillor Timpey, you're present.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
Okay, Chairman, I'll just say the names that I've noted. The other members present are Councillor Coleman, Councillor Cook, Councillor Harmer, Councillor Madeley, Councillor Mear, Councillor Oliver, Councillor Proshak, Councillor Stevens and Councillor Vinehall. So if there are any other members whose names I haven't called out, if you could put your name in the chat, please. Thank you.
Okay. So members are encouraged to make their comments succinct and pertinent and to ensure smooth running of the meeting. Those members who wish to speak should please indicate by typing your surname only into the chat facility. The chat facility is persistent in that it cannot be deleted, and any inappropriate use will be deemed as a potential code of conduct matter. Officers wishing to respond to members' questions, please type interject. I will ask members who have asked a question if they wish to come back after receiving a response, so there is no need to type your surname into the chat facility again. It is a requirement that all members will have read the paperwork published on the website. Members are reminded not to press leave meeting if you need to leave the room. Just to remember to turn off your cameras and microphones. Please be aware that there can be a time delay of around 5 seconds whilst a member appears on screen. Each item will be introduced as we get to it. Item number 1. Apologies for absence, Lisa.
Councillor Barnes.
Thank you. And have we had notification from Councillor Carroll?
I haven't heard anything, Chairman.
Okay. Agenda item 2, disclosure of interests. Now we will have received quite a number of representations from various different organisations. I don't think there is a need to declare a personal interest in each of those organisations. We'll be here all day, I think, from the Bexhill members. But I am going to declare an interest in democracy for Bexhill because I do think that's relevant, although it is not a pecuniary interest and it's not and is not personal interest. Anybody else want to declare a
Yes, please. Also, an interest in Democracy for Bexhill, was very active in that.
And likewise, the same for me. Democracy. So.
yeah,
and for me as a supporter.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Lynn Langlands?
Yes, and myself as well, please.
Okay.
And myself as well, please. Paul Cocktail.
Paul Cocktail.
Likewise, Chair, for Councillor Coleman.
Councillor Coleman. Okay. Right, thank you for that. Minutes of the last meeting, which were attached. Have we got a proposer and seconder for those?
Yeah, I propose. Okay. I propose, Chair.
Anybody second?
Happy to second.
Okay. I think Councillor Osborne was raising his hand. Councillor Langland. I assume, Lisa, do we need to vote on that, or are you happy to sort of take that no dissent means that we agree those?
Yeah, no, that's fine, Chairman. We don't do a vote for minutes. That's absolutely fine.
Right, brilliant. Okay, now we move on to the meat of today's meeting, which is agenda item number 4. And I'm going to ask Colin Venard to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is the meeting to discuss and set that first year precept for the new town council. The report for you sort of outlines why you're here in terms of the delegation council to make that decision. As you said, we also had representations from a number of organisations regarding the proposal. And then within the report itself, you've got in the appendix B to the report, the actual draft precept analysed over the various costs and one item of income that you can see. We issued an updated version of that to include a contribution to a general reserve for the new town council to arrive at a new precept. And also in the report, we've outlined what the impact would be on the council tax bands as well over the various A to H council tax bands. So it is very much the first year of operation. So some of those costs are one-off costs. Some of those costs will be reoccurring, and we've made allowances for that within the overall precept. So hopefully members can see that it covers a broad range of items. From both staffing and actual operational items as well, plus all the setup costs, as I've said. So I think I'm happy to take any questions through that. I've worked with Linda Butcher, the interim clerk, and she's put together most of the figures, and I've supported her in that process. So between me and Linda, hopefully we can answer any questions that members may have. Thank you.
Yeah. Actually, this is very remiss of me. I should have introduced Linda to everybody present. Linda Butcher is our interim parish clerk, and I know has been working really closely with Robin and the team on the budget figures, and has also had a very good meeting with me as chair of this group earlier on in this week, and I really welcome you to our deliberations today. And also a re-welcome to Ian from Surrey Hills Solicitors, who's been doing all the legal work for us. So thank you very much to both of you. Linda, was there anything you wanted to say before I open it up for discussion?
No, I don't think so, Chairman. As you said, I worked closely with Robin to sort this out. Lots of the things in there are one-off costs for the first year, but it's quite a hefty budget, but we've tried to slim it down as much as we possibly can, but still be realistic. Okay.
Right. does somebody want to propose the budget before us, or has anybody got any amendments that they want to make? Councillor Thomas.
Chair, yes, I would like to propose 2 amendments, and I'd like them, please, Chair, if this is okay with you, to have them taken in this order and taken separately. Okay. The first one, Amendment 1, it is to increase the budget sum under heading 22, grants and community support, to £30,000 and to adjust the precept accordingly. And amendment number 2 is to insert an extra category, number 47, COVID Recovery Fund, £10,000 and to adjust the precept accordingly.
Okay. Is that seconded by anybody?
Yes, I would like to second both those proposals.
Okay, Polly, thank you. Councillor Gray. Can I just ask Mr. Venard, if you have any comments about those proposed amendments, or the amendments that we're now looking at?
That's fine, Chairman. I mean, in terms of what members see the new town council needing to do, if they wish to include those items within it, I don't see that being an issue. I can recalculate the effect on the council tax for members if they wish to see that. I can put that through the spreadsheet and then present that to you if you wish, and then you can see the overall precept would then rise to to £371,765. So if members want to see that, I can present that in a minute for them if they agree that proposal.
Okay, I think it would be quite useful to just let us know what the effect is on the precept. So in terms of annual precept, so we know what we're talking about.
Yeah, let me just share that with you if I can work out how to share my screen. Can you see a spreadsheet?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've added in a post-COVID support grant, £10,000, as highlighted there. And then also the grant scheme was actually increased to 30,000 in the line above. We've got a total precept now of 371,765, and the effect on your council's calculations for the new town council shown there with a band D of £22.59, and then you've got your council tax bands A to H there as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Is everybody clear on the committee about that? I've got Councillor Timpey is indicated wish to speak. I've got a number of non-members that have indicated, and I am making a note of all of those.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. No, Robin's answered the question about the extra 20,000 and the effect on the precept, so thank you for that. Okay.
Anybody, I mean, Councillor Thomas, do you want to articulate why you're putting forward your amendment?
Briefly, Chair, please. Just to say to everybody, briefly, Chair, please. Just to say to everybody, first I'd like to thank Robin Venard, yourself, the new town clerk, and the solicitor for all the work they've done to prepare this. They really have worked wonders in putting it all together. The second thing I'd like to say is that my suggestions are in response to the consultation which we have received. We said we would listen to what people have had to say, and so these amendments reflect that listening. To put it into broad context, yesterday was a day when the world became a safer place, thanks to the events in America, and at the risk of incurring some sense of anticlimax, I think today is yet another historic milestone towards the creation of the town council. Because today will be the day when this dream, this hope, this aspiration for a town council to meet the needs of the people speaks of becomes far more of a physical and financial reality. It's the time when the items, the staff, premises, and a promise of further consultation to make sure that the needs of Bexhill people are genuinely met, makes a step further forward. It seems to me there is a clear desire for a town council that will make a difference. And so the council should be given enough money to perform some inexpensive functions, such as finding local organisations like the Bexhill Environment Group and Bexhill Heritage, if it wishes to do so. And the amount in the budget is simply not enough to meet the demand there will be for resources to help these groups. And so I would like to propose an increase in it. And I think that's in line with the spirit of the responses we received in the consultation. And so I think this is one of the ways in which the new Bexhill Town Council will be able to not only spend money, but also create money. If we did something, for example, like setting up a cafe, a loneliness cafe, such a cafe can attract funding from the government's loneliness budget, and it can also attract further funding if that cafe is also used by service members, ex-service members. And so in this way, more money can come back to the council. So that sort of mythical magic money tree will actually come into reality. It's a way of actually generating money as well as spending money. And I'm not sort of trying to bind the new town council by making the suggestion, but just to illustrate the sort of things that a new town council can do to work with community groups to meet the needs of the people and to have financial soundness at the same time. So Chair, I think that the council should be in a position to encourage new voluntary initiatives and award grants to deserving organisations, and this extra money will enable it to do so to a satisfactory extent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Now I have got committee members who want to speak. I've got Councillor Byrne next.
Thank you, Chair. I really want to share my thinking with you, because I've thought a lot about this, and I started off, and still the central plank of my thoughts and arguments about this was that the interim town council, that is going to be made up of the existing ward councillors, have not yet been elected as town councillors. Many of us won't necessarily stand, so there'll be new people making the decisions. For that reason, I started from a point of view of thinking we should have a minimum budget, because I didn't think it was fair to commit to spending money, or I didn't think it was fair for a non-elected body to commit to spending money. Therefore, I was all for an absolute minimum precept. However, Councillor Thomas, I think, has made a very good case, and the increases he's proposing, I think, are very modest. So I still think that this should go forward on the basis that the real town council, when it's elected, will be setting the real precept and probably have far greater ambitions than this particular precept would show. But for the reason of a modest increase, and also the post-COVID reasons that Councillor Thomas has mentioned, I'm happy to support that. Sorry, I'm chewing my tongue here for some reason. I'm happy to support this modest increase in the precept as set out by Councillor Thomas. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Langlands.
Yes, I would like very much to support Councillor Thomas's idea, the COVID Recovery Fund, because I think that if there is going to be a delay in the elections, and we don't know that, but if there is, then the future town council will have a limited time to actually make an impact in their first period of administration. And I think it will be a time when COVID recovery is an absolute priority. And I think that if they can actually start doing something in that direction, and they have the funds to do it, then I think it will actually be a wonderful community thing for town, and will bring them on board and help them to sort of look to the future for Bexhill. It's a brilliant idea. Thank you, Councillor Thomas.
Okay. I've got Councillor Osborne, committee member now.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'm not going to dissent from Bexhill members' thoughts, because I don't pay Bexhill rates, so that's fine. My only question was on the sort of proposed budget I've got in front of me. The original was 276, and the new one's 371. So unless I've got the wrong figures here, I wouldn't say that's a modest increase. It's sort of a 95,000 quid. So, but unless I've got different figures in front of me, I'm on the ModGov thing. That's the only point I was making.
Okay, Councillor Osborne, I think I can help you a little bit with that. Earlier on this week, a revised budget was circulated by officers. That added in a contribution to a reserve, which is a legal requirement. I understand that a new council starts to develop or build up a reserve, which is, I think, a calculation of the, of the overall spend. Shall I? Mr. Venard has asked to speak, so I'm going to bring him in now.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. As you say, we added a contribution to a general reserve. I think the guidance and advice for town councils or parish councils is that you should provide for between 3 months and 6 months of spend. And for the larger councils, 3 months of spend. Ian probably has a greater level of detailed information on this in terms of the legal side, but as far as we were concerned, we needed to provide provision for a general reserve so that the council has some cash in the event that it needed to react to any situation in that first year particularly, and then review their situation for their second year precept.
Thank you. Right, if the Councillor Gray, did you want to come in at all? Because I'll start bringing in the external councillors.
Only to say that I thoroughly support the argument put forward by Richard Thomas and also Councillor Langlands.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. Okay, so I've got Councillor Cortell.
Thank you, Chair. I've got 3 questions, and only one relates to what has been covered so far. The other 2 are from separate areas of the budget. It seems to me that, off the top of my head, that 75,000 for the creation of a general reserve seems to be rather more than 3 months of expenditure. Is the full 75,000 necessary? That's my first question. My second question relates to employee costs, which are displayed at 96,900. Could I be advised as to how this figure was reached? And my third question relates to election costs, which are displayed at 62,000. And as there are 3 separate elections taking place on the same day, I would have thought that a lot of election costs could be shared between 3 separate organisations. East Sussex County Council, the Police Commissioner elections and the Town Council. You only need the same number of polling clerks at polling stations, whether there are 1 or 2 or 3 elections. And on that basis, I'm just a little bit surprised with a figure of 62,000. Thank you.
Right, okay. I'm going to ask Linda to come in and perhaps address some of those issues. Councillor Stevens has asked Mr. Venard if we can stop sharing the spreadsheet for the minute.
Yeah.
So we can perhaps bring it up again towards the end. Miss Butcher, would you like to say something?
The employee costs obviously cover for you when you get your permanent clerk as opposed to me, but it also covers me as well. Don't forget there are pension costs in there as well, so it's not all salary that's in that figure. There are other overreaching costs for staffing things that have to go in there, but they were based on the reports that I had from your previous meetings about the sort of figure you thought you would need to attract a good clerk that you need for a prestigious job, which Bexhill will be, obviously. And therefore, that was the basis that we started from. My costs are in there, but I'm only there for probably 7 months. Obviously, depending on when the election is, we hope it's going to still be the 6th of May, but who knows? But there are, you know, all of the staffing costs that are in there were done separately and then all added together and put down as a lump sum.
Okay, do you want to also address the reserve question about the level of reserve? Who decided that, or is that something
that was actually something that Ian put forward, because I hadn't thought about it at the time, I must admit. But it is usual for all councils to have a general reserve, and it should cover between 3 and 6 months, or sometimes even a year's running costs that you can anticipate. Well, in your particular case, we don't know what your running costs are going to be yet, because although I put a figure in there, if you had, for example, a shop front in the centre of Bexhill for your main office, or for the town council's main office, there's a figure in there for that, which is, you know, 12,000 a year. Plus there's other costs that you will need. So it's general running costs to keep you going in the case that we need to keep you going for whatever reason. And we don't know what emergencies might arise. So the general reserve is there to keep you operating.
Well, that's, I think, Linda, in that case, that raises quite an interesting point about whether actually that is, you know, rather on the high side. Mr. Vanna, do you want to comment?
Thank you, Chairman. I think, as you say, the spend we're looking at is in excess of 350,000, 370,000 in the year. So also what this does is create a level of reserve for the council going forward. So in year 2 precept, obviously potentially you may not need to raise further £75,000 of precept to fund that additional contribution to reserve. So there will be a saving in the second year of the council in order, and it can then reassess its level of reserves that it needs in order to meet that ongoing expenditure. I think, as Linda said, there's a lot of uncertainty in these figures. These are our best guess at this moment in time. And as members have said, then the council needs to have sufficient resources in order to deliver what it needs to in the first year, particularly. And therefore, a contribution at that level seems reasonable. It's way below what a 6-month figure would be, for example. So it's a reasonable figure based upon the level of spend that we expect the council to have to incur.
Okay, thank you. I've got an interjection from Malcolm Johnson. Do you want to speak now?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. It was just to address a slightly different matter, but the election costs are the shared costs. That's already taking into account that there are other elections running. A major part of those costs is around assumptions around the use of polling cards, for example. And just to put members in the picture, we're being asked by tomorrow to inform the printers what level of printing we will want for this election because of the number of elections going on and the demand. So we've had to make certain assumptions. But I think Robin will confirm we've looked back over previous elections, and those are the costs, the share of costs, and are a reasonable share. And I would remind you, whatever you decide, if you alter that figure, the town council will be charged whatever the actual costs are. So there is a risk that if you lower that figure, you will be starting them off from a negative perspective. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. I was going to say, Ian Davison, did you want to come in on the reserve issue just to clarify?
Chairman, thank you. It is normal, as has already been said, to have between 3 and 6 months of actual spend by way of reserves. It's your rainy day money. You don't know what you may need, and of course, when I suggested the 75,000, it was a 75,000 being a quarter of 300,000. Now, of course, the but headline figure's gone up to 370,000, so it's a reasonable figure. Some small councils would expect to have 12 months of their spend by way of reserve, but larger councils having a precept of over 250,000 are recommended to have 3 months. I can tell you already, I've already been notified of a potential additional cost, which is likely to have to come out of that already, and I've already advised members of that. And that could be anything up to £5,000. So it's money you don't know what you may be spending, and it's therefore a contingency to that extent.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the position on reserves. And as Robin Bernard has already indicated, raising £75,000 when you have the opportunity and not putting the precept above the bandy equivalent of £22 or thereabouts is a good time to do it. Next year, you may not have to do that, in which case the precept for next year could be lower or spent on other things.
Okay, thank you very much. Now I've got committee members who want to speak now. So can I go back to Councillor Byrne?
Thank you, Chair. This is really just a question. If the elections are delayed by 1 or 2 months, does that make any difference to any of the items in the budget? This precept or this amount of money is going to have to run for a year, but it strikes me that essentially the period between when we should have had the elections and when we might actually have the elections would affect the spend. If that's so, would any of those items be prorated, or would we still stick to the full amount?
Mr. Johnson wants to come in and answer that question.
Well, I'll not. I mean, all I can say to Councillor Byrne and members is the government are telling us the elections will proceed on the date in May, but it is being kept under review. So we have to have a working assumption that it will proceed. I think, just to build on what Ian was saying, that bear in mind that a town council or parish or town council, if it ends the year with too much money, in effect, it can reduce its precept in subsequent years. And it doesn't have the problem that we have, that you can never get that reduction back because we're limited to percentage increases. So a town and parish council can be much more flexible around its precept. I think the important thing, and that what we've tried to do through this budget, and I think members recognise this, is we don't want to set this parish council up and then give it nothing in terms of money to do things. It can always adjust at year end, and it can adjust its precept in future. The other issue we've got to have is that Robin has to, we have to set the council tax, and we need to assume a precept. You may well be right, Councillor Byrne, and it may be delayed and there may be a pro-ratering, but I would suggest that's an issue for the town council to adjust at year end.
Thank you very much. I've got Councillor Timpey now wants to speak. Are you wanting to speak on Councillor Cortell's questions?
Well, it was more in line with what Linda was just saying about the shop front. In the responses we've had, especially from D4B, there's an expectation that the town council would be housed within Rother District's building. I think we need to explain perhaps why we think that isn't the case and why this is appearing on the budget. Maybe for later when we've answered Councillor Cortell's question.
Yeah, I'm note that question. That's really a good question. Okay, so Councillor Cortell, have we answered your questions?
Indeed, you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I've got a Councillor Vinehall who would like to speak, but before you do, Councillor Vinehall, I've got Councillor Langlands has just waved her hand at me. Was there something you wanted to say?
No, I did put my name in the chat. It was really just a quick question to Malcolm, really. Read the election costs, if you don't mind. I was reading yesterday in NALC about local council election costs, and they pointed out that the principal local authorities receive a government grant to meet the costs of managing representative democracy at a local level, which should include elections to parish and town councils. Do we get a grant, Malcolm? And is that taken into account in terms of how much you attribute to a local council election?
If I'm Chairman, we receive the costs of the election from the body that we are carrying out the election. So if it is a parliamentary election, then that is covered from central government. The county council cover their own elections. Yes, we do receive money, but bear in mind that elections are not just the elections team. It's not all about the election. There's the annual canvass. There's the maintenance of the register. So there's quite substantial costs in actually building up to an election. But it's always been, as far as I'm aware, and anywhere I've worked, established practice that the body that you are holding the election for carries out the election. And actually, rather bizarrely, there's also a charge even if you don't have an election, if you have uncontested seats, which is seems to me a rather I suppose it's to do with the preparation for it. So although we receive grants, yes, from central government, we will receive some, we may receive some money. I'm not aware that we receive any directly. We certainly don't receive direct funding for the election, and that should be funded by the body it's being carried out on behalf of.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Mr. Johnson, do you think you could address the question? I think perhaps if we do that now, about the fact that our original calculations were around housing the town council within the town hall, but that has now changed. Did you want to come back on that?
Yeah, if I may, Chairman, there are two issues in that. One is, wherever the town council goes, there will be costs. If it was housed within the town hall, there would be a cost to that, because members need to bear in mind that the town council is a separate sovereign body, and rather should not be supporting it in a way that it doesn't support other towns and parishes. I think there is a view, and Linda's better placed than me to sort of talk about this, but there is a view, particularly as it sets up, that, going back to my point, it is an independent sovereign body and it needs to sort of form its own identity in many ways. And the easiest way for it to do that is to be distinct from Rother District Council. That may merge over time. For instance, in Battle, we have a shared office now with Battle Town Council, but that's taken since 1974 to achieve. So I don't think we could be accused of rushing into that, one or either party accused of that. But there will be a cost, and there has to be a provision made for that cost. And I think when the budget was being pulled together, that was seen as, if the town council, and it is ultimately a decision for the town council, and Linda will advise on that decision when that comes to it. If they wish to go outside, that was a reasonable cost for an outside premises.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Butcher, do you want to say anything, Linda?
Yes, please. Yes, when I was first given the papers, there was a suggestion in there that the town council would be housed in the town hall. Therefore, my questions to Robin were, how much rent would there be? Would there be security? Would there be caretaking, cleaning charges? All those sorts of things. And he did say that at the moment, nobody had sort of suggested anything as regards cost. Therefore, in order to put something in the budget, I just went to local estate agents saying what offices are to rent with a shop front in the centre of Bexhill and what sort of costs are they. And there was one right in the centre of Bexhill, which was £12,000 a year. I thought, right, that'll do for a general figure to put in there, just to, so that there was a figure in there. Now, without blowing my own trumpet, you are the third council that I have assisted in setting up. One was Andover in Hampshire, and they were housed originally with Tess Valley in their offices. That did not work because nobody knew what the town council was about. They just thought it was an offshoot of the principal authority. And therefore, as soon as they were able to, they moved into a shop front in the centre of Andover. The second one I did was Queen's Park, and right from day one, they were in a shared office, but not with anything to do with Westminster Council or any other council. It was a charity where they shared an office with. So I believe for the town council to have its own identity, it does need its own office space.
Okay, thank you. I think that's I think we discussed that. Mr. Vennard, you did indicate you wanted to come in. Is there? Do you want to have the final word on this?
No, I think everyone has covered it. It was just that the point I was going to pick up was on the costs, but it's just to remind members that the actual town council comes into being on the 1st of April, and setting up the town council, a lot of those costs will still be incurred. The elections are delayed beyond May, so it's just to highlight that to members.
Okay, thank you very much. Now I've got, I know I'm coming to you, Jeanette Stevens, but first of all, I've got to go back to Jonathan Vinehall. Jonathan.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. Appreciate the opportunity to speak just for a couple of minutes. I've generally maintained a distance from the discussions on Bexhill Town Council because I think there's enough people in Bexhill to make comment as this process has gone through, and what another day of fantastic achievement. Despite that, the creation of the town council was actually in my manifesto because as a chair of a parish council, and I know we have a number of chairs, a number of parish councillors on the council, I think everyone realised that Bexhill needs to stand on its own, raise its own money, spend its own money, and disconnect from the district council. And that will take a little time to do, just through the mechanics of everything that goes with that. I very much support Councillor Thomas's recommendations or proposals as put up, and I know there's been a lot of discussion on this, which is also excellent. I think you've got a fantastic interim clerk and fantastic advice, so that all those things are coming together. Should the elections even be delayed, you're going to have a new town council of a number of people, and they are going to have enormous energy. Unfortunately, after about 3 or 4 months, a lot of the setup, which would include training and setting up committees and so forth, will be done, and there will, you'll be in planning mode for the future. But you're going to have still a lot of very energetic councillors who want to get on with things, which is why I think the COVID recovery program is an excellent thing for those councillors to get involved in. And I'm sure that there wouldn't be anyone who would say that that wasn't something which needs to be done, has to be done, and would be a real feather in the new town council's cap as a starting point. They could really deliver something immediately. Also, it would help take the pressure off the clerk, because I'm sure the clerk, whether interim or otherwise, doesn't really want 18 councillors asking questions on a daily basis, so give them a little bit of focus. There are a couple of messages here. One, this is a very small precept. Even when you add the special expenses in, it is still a very modest precept stroke special expenses. And I will have circulated to many people all sorts of examples over the months to show the real cost of running a town. And I do appreciate the political issues involved here and the sort of perhaps promises made over the election period and so forth. But the reality is something different. And certainly the experience of those of us who are in towns and parishes is that simply do not be afraid of your precept. Do not be afraid of the precept. It's not about how much you charge. Of course, it has to be reasonable and responsible, and the money's spent appropriately on things that really deliver benefits. but you will be judged, the town council will be judged on what they deliver. And if they're delivering something which is really excellent for the community and something which is better and perhaps even more economical than is being done through the district council's own infrastructure, then that is what you will be judged on. That for those people who may join the district, the town council. So don't be tentative. Don't worry about 50p or 10p or whatever. You will see many examples right across Rother where parish and town councils have increased their precepts substantially, and we're talking 10, 20, 30, 40% without any comment from the large majority of people, because they can see that their town council or parish council are doing a very good job and actually delivering. So please do not be worried about this. Do not be tentative. Do not be afraid of the precept. I'm pretty sure that I would be supported by those who are on parish and town councils and who've been through these sort of discussions many times. And there's always a lot of balanced thinking that goes on, and different opinions, ranging from we can't raise a precept. I mean, I came into a parish where the precept hadn't been raised for about 10 years, and people were so nervous, and of course nothing happened when it was raised. But we're doing good things, as will Bexhill Town Council. It's going to be a fantastic thing. I would say one thing, and I would encourage this, and certainly I was pleased to see the reserves included, because when I saw the numbers, I did wonder where the reserves were. And you do have to have reserves, and the reserves are about a quarter. But your reserves, the reserves of the Bexhill Town Council, are going to have to grow, and they're going to have to grow next year and the year after, because as the precept grows, the reserve will have to grow with it. And I would personally suggest, it's only a quarter at the moment, and as Ian and Linda said, it's recommended between a quarter and a half, I suppose, for Bexhill. A quarter's probably being a larger town council, but I would not be afraid of adding a little bit more in now, because you are going to have to build it, and it will give a little bit of help to the new town councillors should projects appear immediately that they want to respond to. But I would also put to Councillor Thomas and encourage him to modify his amendment, because I think that actually you won't get enough done with a £10,000 COVID recovery. I think in a town the size of Bexhill, you're probably to have any sort of impact looking at a figure more like 20,000. Now that is another increase, and people probably say we just agreed an increase, but once again you're talking 30p. You're not talking a lot of money, and it would really give those new town councillors an enormous opportunity to do immediate good and get them off the clerk's back at the same time. And I know Linda's not going to comment on that. So that's all I'm saying. Thank you very much, Chair. And I put that to Councillor Thomas should he wish to take that suggestion up.
Okay, well, I'm sure Councillor Thomas will talk to that later. I've got Councillor Stevens.
Yes, good morning. I fully support the The question I wanted to ask, the precept for the council tax is a one-off just for 1 year, and is it for the whole of Rother or just Bexhill people? Could you please answer that? Thank you.
Mr. Vennard, do you want to respond to that?
Thank you, Chairman. I wasn't quite sure of the whole question because my internet was a bit bad at that moment.
Is the precept for the whole of Rother or just Bexhill ratepayers?
No, it's just Bexhill. That's relating to the new town council, so it only affects Bexhill residents.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
And good luck.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. I've got Councillor Coleman next.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and good morning, everybody. I wanted to exercise a small, I guess, word of caution on Councillor Thomas's proposals or amendment. I guess in my hat as Chair of the Anti-Poverty Task and Finish Group, and also, I guess, as Cabinet spokesperson for child poverty as well, we are in a pandemic, and I don't want. I think the idea of a COVID relief, COVID recovery fund, perhaps it should be changed to COVID relief and recovery, because I think there's an important need for some COVID relief there as well. The idea is certainly a good one, but I just think members need to consider whether increasing the tax precept in order to fund that is going to put people at more of a disadvantage than and so it ends up being a cyclical thing. I've only had one mug of coffee, I apologise. And whether we're sort of asking people to pay more in order so that we can pay them, certainly in terms of those on lower incomes. And also, I think there is a perceived notion when we do things like this, where obviously, I think in the 2017 consultation, Rother put out a figure of 12 pence as a basic per week for a Band D property as the basic running costs of a town council. I think D4B or Democracy for Bexhill put out a similar one of 14p based on that. And then in the previous consultation that we've not long had, I think the figure was slightly higher, 20 something pence. And I worry that there would be a perception that this figure is going up and up as we get nearer to a Bexhill Town Council being established. And whilst we certainly have a mandate for a Bexhill Town Council, absolutely. I mean, 2 incredible consultations, a landslide election where every single Bexhill councillor was elected on a pledge of some kind to modify and increase Bexhill's governance, and 17 of those 18 councillors were for a town council. I think we haven't got a mandate for any amount of money, and I just think that whilst I don't disagree with Councillor Thomas's proposals, I think members need to make sure that if they are increasing the precept, it is for necessary reasons, and that it won't negatively impact those who are on lower incomes to any extent, considering we are in a pandemic, considering that poverty is on the rise. There are more people in poverty now than ever before. A lot of those people who haven't had experience of being in poverty and have just lost their jobs or are out of work and aren't able to manage their finances, and perhaps maybe a slower increase of the precept over time might be something that is more manageable. Obviously, there's always comparisons to other town and parish councils, but they have been going in a lot of cases for some time, and they've increased their precept incrementally as needed, and that's often a lot more budgetable, whereas suddenly telling people you have to pay an extra £22 a year or an extra however much pound a year it is with Councillor Thomas's amendment is already quite an extra figure on people in this situation. So I just want to make sure that members consider when they vote on this amendment whether it is actually achieving value for money or whether it's going to put people in the lowest income brackets at more financial peril. Thank you.
I've got Councillor Oliver and Councillor Harmer to come in, but before that I've got Councillor Byrne who wishes to make a comment.
Thank you, Chair. Really harking back to Councillor Vinehall's comments, his comments are obviously very valuable and come from a lot of experience. However, I think many of his comments were better directed to newly elected town councillors who have had a mandate from the electorate for the programme they put before them. And that's why I'm in favour of a modest increase, but no more. And taking Councillor Coleman's point as well, I really feel that we have to, the whole town council precept idea has to be put before all the residents of Bexhill. Just because we were elected as Rother district councillors on a platform, or largely on a platform of we will go for the creation of a town council, I don't think we can act as if we were elected town councillors. And I think there's a big definition, a big division between those two statuses that we've really got to keep in mind. So I'm very happy with the COVID recovery, and I do agree we've got to do something quite quickly. However, if it's a recovery fund, we don't know when we are going to be recovering. I still think that the amount of things that the town council, regardless of its makeup, whether it's newly elected members or the existing members, I don't think it's going to get an awful lot done between now and the first genuine elections. So again, I'm very keen on the precept that we've been talking about at the moment, and that Mr. Venard has put before us, as amended also by Councillor Thomas's figures. But I really don't. All the ambitious things, all the things we really hope for a town council to do, I feel should be left for the new town councillors who will have a mandate from the residents of Bexhill.
Yeah, if I'm allowed to comment at this moment, I would go along with that, Terry. Right, okay, I'm going to bring in Councillor Oliver now.
Thank you, Christine. I've listened with interest as to the comments this morning. I think the main one really for me is that we have a responsibility as a council to set up a solid financial base for the incoming town council. With no previous financial figures to go on, the work that's been put in by Linda and Robin are obviously based on assumptions. And as Malcolm quite rightly said, that the precept with any surplus that's left would be adjusted in the years to come. I think it's very important that the new council, when elected, has this opportunity to prepare themselves forward with all the external advice that they will be wanting to take from their interim town clerk and the incoming town clerk, which is obviously going to be a very, very prime role for someone to take on board and very important. I think I worked out the precept as proposed as around 40-something p per week. I think this is a relatively modest sum for the democracy that we are going to achieve, something that has been worked for on many years in Bexhill to bring us on parity with the rest of the county. So I think that this is an exciting opportunity. I think this work group, steering group, has done an exceptionally good job, and I look forward to getting the outcome of this today in order that the town council can be formed and move forward as we all hope, with the exciting future ahead. And well done for everybody that's contributed. I think it's been an excellent task, well professionally run. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Harmer.
Thank you, Chair. Just a comment on Councillor Coleman's point, and I fully understand that the 12p a week that was banded around in the early days, things have changed since then. COVID's happened, and we have to amend and diversify. Our roles as district councillors have diversified to deal with what we're dealing with. So I'd just like to say, I think going forward, we are going to be facing a lot of issues, and I fully support Richard Thomas's proposal. I think it's better to be forewarned and forearmed, and I think it would work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I don't have any further discussion on my list. I don't think there are any further comments. Mr. Johnson, do you want to say anything to just sort of sum up and let us know how what happens now?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I mean, I think the clear message from members, and this has been something that we've been conscious of all along, and I think in a lot of that has come back from the consultation, is that, you know, if we're going to have a town council, let's have a town council that can do something. Let's set it up in that way, and I think that's been recognised by members, and rightly recognised by members. What will happen following today is two things will happen. Is at one point we will I was going to say we will tell Robin what the precept is for the town council. He will already know by the time what the precept is for the town council, so that will be fed into the budget process. I think the other thing that's probably worthy of note is at some point we need to sign and seal the community governance order to actually bring that into effect. I would remind members, as you're already aware, the council has already agreed to the community governance order, so that bit is not an issue. It just needs to be signed and sealed. So we will sort that out, and we will continue working with obviously with Linda up till the point when the new town council is formed, and with Ian. And can I, I know you've already said it, Chairman, but can I also thank Ian and Linda for their assistance and advice. I think it's been excellent to have that level of expertise and experience with us that gives members and officers a degree of confidence that what we're doing is the right way forward for this town council. I think members have rightly made the point that we need to set it up, and then it's for the town council to make decisions on it once it's set up, and that's come through clearly today. I think it's going to be, I think this is going to present opportunities for Bexhill, but also for Rother to work with a new organisation and work with a different way in Bexhill. So, quite exciting times, if I may say that, Chairman, and we'll be seeing this process through, and we'll let members know, obviously, whenever everything is signed, sealed, and I was going to say delivered. I'm not sure who it's delivered to other than to us, but there we are.
Yes, it's very exciting times. Councillor Thomas, you wanted to speak.
Just to sum up my sense of the debate, if that's all right, Chair. First, I'd just like to thank Malcolm Johnson, Robin Venard, Linda Butcher, and Ian Davidson for their contributions to the debate today, and they've given us very informative answers that have helped us to understand what is happening and why it is happening. So very, very grateful for that. And also very appreciative of all the comments that have been made by my fellow councillors, including Councillor Byrne, Councillor Langford, Councillor Gray, Councillor Harmer, and I also want to say something about Councillor Coleman's contribution in a minute. Listening to the debate, my impression is that members do feel that there is a need to do something to help the town and the district recover from the COVID situation. I noticed that both the Daily Telegraph and the Guardian last week had articles which said that the major political issue of 2021 will be the economic and psychological recovery from COVID. And I think that's a very, very central issue. It's very good, therefore, that we're responding to that. And I just want to say just something personal, and that is that my work as a psychotherapist brings me into contact with the levels of distress, anxiety, depression, and indeed paranoia that there is in the community at the moment. It is extremely worrying. I sometimes come off those sessions in a very somber and sober mood. And so anything we can all do to help that is well worthwhile. And this gives the new town council an opportunity to make its contribution. I just want to say that I do understand the concerns which Councillor Coleman has raised. And so it's important to stress that we do have a system for council tax relief for those who are the most suffering from poverty. But also there's a new protocol that the council has entered into whereby it will guarantee that it will not be charging people for council tax when they are in serious distress. And so I think it's really important to acknowledge that the issue he raises is a very important one, and we do want to adjust our policies accordingly. And I also think Councillor Byrne had a very strong point. And the strong point, I think, is this. We have a compact with the electorate. And at a time when there are issues, both in Britain and abroad, about dishonesty by politicians, I think it's really important to say to people who criticise us for having in any way hoodwinked the electorate over this town council issue. We have not done so. We have been open, we have been transparent, and we have been honest. In our own consultation documents, the sum we quoted was £22, and £22 will be the sum we will be going for if we pass these amendments. And so I think it's very much a matter of the pact between us and the electorate, that we ask the electorate what they think, we listen to their response, we respond to their response, and we stick by what we have said. And I think that's the hallmark of this new council. So I just want to say, if we pass these two measures, we will be making a real contribution to the community. And I think that the whole debate has been conducted in such a good way. We're not only in a situation where we are responding to the consultation, the representations by organisations like Democracy for Bexhill, but what I think is that this discussion and this debate has been a splendid example of democracy in Bexhill now. And so on that basis, I commend these two amendments to the council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Well, you really stole my thunder there, because it is my, you know, as chair of the committee, I would like to thank all the officers Linda Butcher, Ian Davidson for their input today, and also my fellow councillors, both on the committee and those who have joined the meeting today to comment. I'd like to thank them all for a really good, reasonable debate. And I think that we've got something now in front of us that that we can put forward that will go into the council tax for 21-22 and provide finance for when the town councillors are elected, hopefully in May. Because let's try and be positive that that we are on our way out of this awful crisis. So
can I just thank you at the end? I just want to thank you, if you don't mind.
Oh, that's very kind of you, Councillor Thomas. Right, so we move to a vote on Councillor Thomas's amended budget. Lisa, do you want to do the honours, please?
Yeah, Chairman, just to confirm, it's not actually an amendment because the original budget hadn't actually been moved and seconded. There was nothing on the floor, so I was just going to take the vote on that with those two additions. Is everyone clear?
Yes,
so we're not voting on the amendment, we're voting on the budget, including those two new additions. Right, so if you can just answer for, against and abstain. So Councillor Bayliss.
For.
Councillor Byrne.
For.
Councillor Carroll. Not sure if he's joined us. No. Councillor Gray.
For.
Councillor Langlands.
For.
Councillor Osborne.
For.
Councillor Thomas.
For.
Councillor Timpey.
For.
That's carried, Chairman.
Thank you very much. So that now will go into the community governance order, which will be signed and sealed. I don't think there's anything further now, Ian, to go into the community governance order. This is the bit we were waiting for, wasn't it?
Chairman, there are one or two other things. I had a meeting with Graham Burgess yesterday concerning property matters. We're still sorting those out, but we're nearly there on the property matters. And the other figure that we just need to settle is the amount of surplus which are held by the charter trustees. That has to go in. I know that's around about £8,000, but we just need a figure around that. So those other two items are still just being resolved, but now we have a major step forward in the 371,765. I think that's the figure which I think we're all agreeing now.
Yeah, we have certainly agreed that. That's fine. Okay, so let's move on to the final agenda item, which is around the terms of reference. Mr. Johnson, do you want to introduce this?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I mean, it's a report for noting, as you recall, the in effect this under the previous terms of reference, this group would have finished its work by this point. It was felt that that we wanted to move forward and in assisting the town council at least start the recruitment process for a new town clerk moving forward, so that once the town councillors are elected, they weren't starting from a point of having to completely begin the whole process. So the terms of reference were amended as such, and we will be working with Linda in moving that forward with advice from SALC, etc. So it's really a report for noting and looking at how we will we move forward. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for that, Mr. Johnson. So can I just ask about the next potential date for a meeting? I know we haven't got anything on here, a suggested date, but are we talking about having another meeting in March?
I've got to be honest, Chairman, I hadn't really thought about that, because really the next bit is it's down to administrative arrangements of agreeing a job description, agreeing a time scale for recruitment. I would imagine, and I'm maybe being simplistic with this, but I would imagine that rather than reinventing wheels between Linda and SALC, they will have something that can be if not pulled off the shelf, at least adapted from a shelf that would move it forward. I mean, it's up to members whether they feel that there's anything within that administrative process that they need to look at.
Right. Okay. Linda, do you have any comment that you want to make?
Yes, Chairman. I'm already working on a job description and an advertisement and a person specification, because, as Malcolm said, there are examples out there already that have been used, and I'm just sort of rewording it slightly to fit Bexhill's needs. I'm working also on a timeline to show members so that they can see when it would be necessary to place advertisements, and getting applications out and back in, ready for after the election for the real council, if you like, to shortlist, ready to do interviews. My only comment on that, but I can appreciate why it has to be this way. I think my contract is due to end on the 31st of July at the moment. If the new council and the election is on the 6th of May, maybe within the first 2 or 3 weeks were to hold interviews for a real town clerk. If it's somebody who is already a town clerk, maybe at a smaller council somewhere, normally they would have to give 2 or 3 months notice. So you could find that there is a gap between me finishing and the new clerk starting. I'm not looking for a job, but I will be there to support you if that need arises.
Okay, that is really very reassuring. Councillor Osborne, you're next.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a sort of just a thought I was having. Would this group remain in place until the council is formed? I was just wondering if, you know, if there is a delay with May elections, would we sort of need to stay formed until the council is formed, even if we're sort of just acting as almost like a overarch or a scrutiny function, if you like, just to make sure everything's tickety-boo?
I'm going to ask Ian potentially to address that issue, because I think we have brushed over this in previous meetings, where the existing 18 Bexhill councillors actually on the 1st of April do sort of become the de facto town council. But Ian perhaps can explain.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. The position is this, that vesting date is the 1st of April. That's when the new council comes into being. That's when most of the assets and all the rest of it is transferred, and their right to raise cash. Under normal circumstances, 6th of May is the date upon which there will be ordinary elections, and the new members would take office on the 4th day thereafter, which I think will be the Monday this year. But as you quite rightly pointed out, from the 1st of April to the 10th of May, the existing district councillors for the Bexhill area, the 18 of them, are a sort of an interim body. They actually have full powers, but they are an interim body. So really, it will be for them. They won't actually have any meetings, I suspect, but it'll be for them to make keep a watching brief, which is slightly different from the current arrangements where we have half a dozen or so members of the steering group. So the question is whether you want a plethora of groups or whatever at that stage. And certainly I shouldn't think, certainly after the 10th of May, I don't think there would be any real room for having anybody of this council to continue after the 10th of May. So that's all I can offer, really. Yes, you are right. There will be an interim arrangement from the 1st of April until the 10th of May. Okay. And how you play that is down to you, really.
Councillor Osborne, did you want to come back on that?
Yeah, if I may, no, that's fine. That answers the question perfectly. I always thought that somewhere along the line, the sort of charter trustees or the Bexhill district members would sort of fill the gap, if you know what I mean. So if that's fine. If that's from the 1st of April, and then to a degree, you know, they've got the mandate to carry on until the election. Well, I think it might be worth saying that until the elections, put that in writing somewhere, just so that everybody knows, and then we can say that this group sort of ceases itself on the 31st of March.
Yeah. Yes, I've sort of come to that conclusion, Councillor Osborne, that maybe we ought to have a conclusion date, which is the 31st of March, because the 18 Bexhill Town Councillors will then form will have any sort of decision-making power. Councillor Byrne next.
Thank you, Chair. My questions largely, or my statement is largely around the same issues. We started off saying date for another meeting. Do we need one? I believe that if there is an announcement formally delaying the elections and giving a new date, I think that would trigger, I hope, a meeting of this group to just consider those implications and maybe expand a bit on the points already raised by Councillor Osborne and by Ian Davidson. So my view is we would need another meeting if there is an official announcement that the elections are delayed.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Johnson, you've indicated you want to interject.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm happy that you have a date, but I mean, in your outcomes, one of your outcomes is a successful recruitment campaign. So, I mean, your date will become apparent through the outcomes. Just a reminder, the other one is a successful pre-election campaign. We will be doing that anyway, as we would normally do with elections, and in terms of promoting the fact that there are elections coming up this year. If there is an announcement that says it's being delayed, I may find myself in a dark room with a wet towel over my head, sort of. But I'm sure I can come out for a meeting at some point if that's the case. But I mean, I think you've got clear outcomes for this group. I mean, it really is a case of we will be working with Linda and to get the job description, etc., up for the new town clerk. We will obviously have to run the recruitment, or perhaps you will talk to Salk about and to Linda about the best way to deal with that. And it's really whether members feel that they want to have some sort of role in that, and I think that's a decision for you as members.
Okay, thank you for that. I've got Councillor Thomas next.
Thank you, Chair. Can I first say something that I didn't say and I wish I had said, which is I would like to congratulate you personally upon the way in which you conducted the meetings, that you had done so with impartiality and intelligence, and you steered this committee with great skill. And I'd like to express my appreciation and my thanks to you for that. Okay.
Thank you.
Now, the next thing is I'm a little bit dubious about this idea of us not having a meeting in March. I rather incline, you asked the question about should we have a March meeting. I think you asked a good question. We had seen from today's meeting that very few matters are merely administrative and technical. There are usually subjects where the councillors might want to ask questions, as Councillor Cortell has done today, and other councillors have raised issues. And there are also there are values behind apparently administrative and technical decisions. And so there's always room for councillors to put in their tuppence worth for them to make their contributions. And I believe profoundly in democratic oversight of even administrative matters. And so for that reason, I very strongly support the idea of having a meeting in March. As to this question of what should happen in terms of an interim council, there obviously are very strong arguments that we should withhold, as it were, our legislative hand in relation to that. But these seem to me to be very, very large matters. And I think there's a great danger in trying to have a very brief and truncated debate you know, say 10 or 15 minutes. This is something that I think we all need to think about very, very seriously indeed. So I wouldn't like to see any decision made on that. But I would say it's very important to keep up this democratic oversight. This meeting has been valuable. I'm sure a March meeting will be equally valuable. Let's go for it.
Yes, thank you very much. I mean, I certainly hope that out from this meeting, from the making of the order, which I hope will sort of take place very shortly, we can then roll out, you know, the publicity, the you know, the promotion of the fact that there will be town council elections in May. And I've already had a conversation with Linda Butcher earlier this week about that and how important that is going to be to make sure that the town council gets off to a really, really good start. So I do think there's obviously some input that's required, feeding to Linda about local organisations, about maybe political groups that we belong to. That obviously there needs to be a conversation with them about the town council and what opportunities. So Linda, did you want to say anything about how you sort of see the next few months rolling out and how we can perhaps support you in that? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Okay. I mean, in my roles previously as a town clerk, I don't enter into the arena of politics, obviously. No. But I'm very happy to approach non-political organisations and make them understand that there is going to be a town council, you know, whether it's with a newsletter or whatever, but not on a political side.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
But there will be a programme of and you will need to know who to approach.
Yes. Any information that anyone can give me about contact details of organisations in Bexhill would be very useful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right. Okay. So we at the moment we can we sort of pencil in an update meeting for March, and perhaps Lisa can go away and sort of canvass when would be a good date for that. But because I do think it would be really useful, as Councillor Thomas has mentioned, that we have an update on the recruitment process. I think we have an update on the signing of the sealing, and to make sure that we've got that, because that is a very, very important event. And thirdly, that we look at the programme for, you know, communicating the council elections. You know what organisations we've spoken to or can speak to, and you know, what more we need to do, what further, you know, interest we need to ginger up. So if Lisa, if that could be done, as that would be really useful, I think.
Yes, certainly. I shall canvass for dates in probably early to middle of March, I would have thought, rather than end of. So,
okay.
Yes, I shall be in touch.
So members are being asked to note the revised terms of reference and to note that a date in March will for the next meeting. Do we need a vote on that, Lisa?
No, that's fine.
Okay. I don't think there's any dissent. Certainly no dissent. Right. On that note, we've got any other business? Anybody else want to raise any other business? Okay. Right. Okay. Lovely. In that case, I should declare the meeting closed. And thank you to everybody for your attendance. And I think we've come to a good position here. Thank you.